Hello, Franklin Academy faculty and staff. My name is Derek McGannon, class of 2021, and I will be presenting my senior project on the need for improving women's knowledge of basic self-defense. Please allow me to propose my solution to possibly reducing female victimization in crime. Thank you. Improving women's knowledge of basic self-defense will help women to protect themselves in harmful situations, lower rates of female victimization in crime, and increase awareness across the board. It is necessary that every woman has the opportunity to feel safe without the burden of cost or availability. That's why it must be easily accessible. Now, why did I choose this topic for my senior project? And why is it important to me? Firstly, I grew up learning self-defense, and I have seen its usefulness firsthand. My mother also raised me to respect women, so it hurts to see others not treat them with the same respect. Women are being targeted and victimized in crime at alarming rates. On the other hand, there are many other benefits I have seen to learning self-defense. And finally, some self-defense classes are very expensive. Feeling safe should be free. So I want to spread awareness to push for safety that is free and accessible for all women who want that comfort. Firstly, I would like to point out that the world is increasingly more dangerous. 6.5 million people are victimized in violent crimes each year. That is 2% of all people living in the United States. The USDJ defines violent crimes as rape, robbery, and assault. Shockingly, the United States is ranked in the 50 least peaceful countries alongside countries like Mexico, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, India, Turkey, and Russia. While America is increasingly more dangerous for everyone, women are being targeted. Over 2.5 million women will experience a violent crime this year. That's 130,000 rape victims, over 400,000 robbery victims, and over 2 million total assault victims. Aggravated assault cases are defined as a situation in which a person attempted to inflict serious injury without regard for the life or well-being of the victim, and that's coming in at 500,000 cases. 1.5 million cases of simple assault cases are also reported. Finally, over 300,000 theft with contact cases are reported each year, and that is when a woman comes in contact with someone who is in the process of robbing their personal property, and it could be dangerous or life-threatening. However, we do see that some women are being targeted more than others. Please refer to Table 3, which is a graph of the average annual rates per 1,000 females in violent crime. We see that black women make up 1/3 of all female victimizations in crime. Furthermore, we see that Hispanic women are targeted more than every other ethnicity combined. Ages 20 to 24 are being targeted the most, and the next largest age group is 12 to 19. So then we can conclude that younger women are being targeted the most, and ages 12 to 24 should be our priority. Now, what does self-defense actually teach women? The first is verbal defense. Verbal commands can prevent incidences from ever happening. Proper commands can stop assailants from taking things too far. The next is physical defense if prevention doesn't work. Physical defense can include releases to get out of holds, strikes to injure, or incapacitation or immobilization of your assailant so that authorities have time to arrive and assess the situation. The next is surrounding awareness. Being aware of your surroundings can help you detect possible threats so that you can avoid them entirely. And finally, how to find help. This can be in public during dangerous situations or finding help for domestic situations that are a repeated occurrence. The University of Washington observed a women's self-defense class. They wrote an article titled, "Learning Self-Defense Teaches Women Far More Than Just How to Protect Themselves. It Kickstarts Self-Esteem." With regards to this class, the article wrote, women, quote, were taught how to use their voices as a weapon for resistance, to seek help to secure breathing space in an attack situation. The class also provided anti-panic training to help the women consider escape routes and fighting strategies in an assault situation. These are great examples of using a verbal defense, as well as seeking breathing room and how to find help. This is also part of surrounding awareness, because you have to find places to calmly collect yourself Lisa Raleigh interviewed some women who were taking self-defense classes and found it effective firsthand in their lives. One woman recounts a time when she encountered a drunk man at a public football game who was touching her and invading her personal space. She says, "I actually spoke up and said, 'Get your hand off me.' That's something I would have never done before." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." So it worked. Another woman recounts a time where she was able to free herself from a controlling man at the bus stop. She states, "A man at the bus stop was invading my space and using ploys to see if I would do what he asked. He acted as if he was joking with me and grabbed my arm near my wrist. I used the wrist release I learned and said loudly for him to leave me alone. I think if I had been less resistant, he would have taken it further." Notice how she was able to prevent the incident from escalating by using a physical defense, the wrist release, and a verbal defense, yelling loudly for him to leave her alone. There are many other benefits to self-defense. Firstly, it is a great source of exercise. It is a form of cardio, strength, and agility training. It also improves breathing techniques. Students often train to remain calm and collected during fights using breathing techniques. Secondly, self-defense provides a feeling of comfort and safety. First, to the woman who might be walking the streets alone, but also to her family members, knowing that she is safe and can handle herself in a dangerous situation alone. Finally, self-defense is a fun activity to invite friends and family. You don't have to go alone, and it can be a great bonding activity. Some people would like to make the argument that we could just teach men not to victimize women, instead of going through the hassle of teaching women how to defend themselves. Now, I would like to make sure that everyone understands that I am not defending male criminals or excusing or condoning actions in any way. They are in the wrong, and it is their fault. However, 100% safety will never be possible in this world. There will always be some bad men out there. It is impossible to guarantee safety, especially with things like addictions to drugs, alcohol, and sexual intercourse, mental illness like aggressive disorders, and men who are medically insane are also factors in this. Addictions and aggressive behaviors are most common in the male gender. And because it is not women's fault, it should not be their responsibility to pay for this life-saving help. I would like to remind you that our goal is to ensure safety for all women by improving their knowledge of basic self-defense. This in turn will lower rates of female victimization and crime. And it can all be accomplished by increasing awareness. Because it is not the woman's fault, she should not have to pay for this. So, we need to make sure that there is no burden of cost or availability that deters women from the safety that they deserve. I know that these statistics have been self-evident thus far, and I hope that this has resonated with you somewhat, because that is the goal, is to spread awareness. Please allow me to propose my possible solution to this growing problem in this world. So, how do we take a hypothetical need to an obtainable reality? Let's visualize my product. I propose that a non-profit organization called the National Women's Self-Defense Association, or NWSA, to be created. It would be funded by donations and sponsors. It would focus on paying professional teachers or sending professional volunteer teachers to travel to the women in need of free lessons. It would also push for legislation to require gyms and martial arts gyms to hold free classes during designated hours. This could be in the middle of the week, in the middle of the day, so that it wouldn't interfere with free business practice. The organization's mission statement would be to ensure all women free safety. Everything costs money, so let's talk about my product's financial boundaries. It is first important to understand which women would benefit the most from these free classes based on their financial status. Women in families making less than $10,000 are victimized twice as much as their counterparts. Poor areas should be prioritized, and classes must be free because many of these women would not be able to pay for expensive classes and therefore would be deterred from taking them. Another important idea to keep in mind is, how do we pay instructors? Volunteer teachers would be the best. However, we understand if they must be paid. Most nonprofit organizations receive 80% of all of their donations from the government. So therefore, we could have government employees, or at worst, we would have to use our own donations to pay for these instructors. An important question to ask is, where can we house such an ambitious project? My first thought or community centers like the YMCA or even churches. This would help target the 12 to 19 aged youth groups. My next idea were high schools and colleges. We could push for the creation of clubs geared towards women's self-defense because this would cover all the way up to ages 24. My next idea were local workout gyms and martial art gyms. This would help women who are in seek of a fun activity, a workout, and a way to learn how to protect themselves. We should also consider women's centers. These centers house domestic violence refugees, and they are often accompanied by their children. One key idea to keep in mind is that areas with a high demographic of Black and Hispanic women should be prioritized because we've learned that they've been targeted the most. Here's a graph depicting the intensity of poverty in the United States. Areas with the darker shades of blue signify poverty. Subsequently, these areas also see higher victimizations of women, so my organization should target these areas first. So what would actually be taught in these classes, and what makes them different from others? Well, one thing that I think that goes overlooked is teaching women how to avoid being a target. If we could just do that, you could avoid having to use self-defense entirely. Steve Cardian from NBC News conducted a study and found that, quote, "It can take a seasoned criminal less than 7 seconds to size you up, to decide whether you'd be easy to rob, assault, kidnap, or whatever else is on his mind," close quote. 7 seconds is how long women have to prepare themselves and convey visually they are not an easy target. This preparation is necessary for women and can be done in a few ways. Cardian's study found that muggers looking for potential targets subconsciously analyze the stride length, foot movement, arm swing, shift in body weight, posture, and speed of everyone who passes by. Ex-criminals were told to pick random victims on the street. Those that were chosen were all slightly abnormal in one of these categories. Those with small or large stride lengths opposed to a comfortable medium appeared physically clumsy, which translated to being easy to physically dominate. The same was said for those that did not walk heel to toe or lifted their feet awkwardly when they walked. Abnormal arm swinging and shift of body weight also led to unwanted attention from these ex-criminals because it signaled clumsiness. Posture was actually one of the biggest targeting factors because it shows how aware of your surroundings you are. People who were slouching, hunched over their phone, or had their head down in any way were quickly pointed out. Lastly, the hasty speed of a potential victim showed nervousness or fear in public situations. Now, a mugger has two large fears. The first one is getting caught, and the second is getting hurt. So we should teach women how to ensure both fears come true for that mugger. Many martial arts studios specialize in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Karate, Taekwondo, and mixed martial arts, or MMA. My classes would specialize in Krav Maga. This is the official hand-to-hand combat of Israeli Special Forces and teaches people how to fight like a normal street fight would, because not every fight is going to be like a perfect karate sparring match with rules and regulations. But how do we know that this will work, and it's not just a hypothetical that will fail? Well, it has already proven to be effective. I grew up learning an art form called Sangshinhai Karate. It is a form of karate that involves jiu-jitsu and judo. However, we also were specialized in ninjutsu vital striking points. I have taught 2 classes for self-defense. First to a youth group filled with boys and girls, and the second one, I was a teaching assistant for a class for middle-aged women. These classes were both well received, and I received words like it was fun, eye-opening, and useful. One thing I did notice was that both age groups were engaged the entire time and found it a fun activity. So it can be helpful for all ages, and it would be beneficial if we targeted everyone. 1 in 5 women in the world will report that they have been sexually assaulted. 1 in 5 women on U.S. college campuses will also report this. This is an awful statistic because they shouldn't be comparable. If we boil these numbers down, we end up with 748,985,990 sexually assaulted women in the entire world, or 11,880,000 on American campuses alone. That is 1.6% of all sexual assault cases in the world happen on American college campuses. We need a change. I appreciate your attention to my presentation. In doing so, we've already spread awareness. We need to lower the rates of female victimization and crime, and to do this, we need to improve women's knowledge of basic self-defense. Thank you for listening.